Step number 2, how to share the gospel. Actually, what is the gospel? Years ago, I was in a hotel and I saw a good-looking man standing at the bar. It was Pierce Brosnan. So I said, oh, what can I say? It's James Bond. So I went to the bar. I was a little bit nervous. And then I looked at him and I said, Mr. Bond, in the movie, you are saving the world. I'm doing it in reality. And then he was listening to me. And, well, it was a good time. But what is the gospel? I mean, imagine you are sitting in a plane and the plane is about to crash. And the plane is packed with unbelievers, with prostitutes and drug dealers and so on. And you are the only believer in the whole plane. Please come to me. Imagine this is a plane and we are about to crash and you have only 2 minutes. Let's go 1 minute. Then everybody is dead. What would you say?
God is love, and God loves relationship, and that was his plan from the beginning. But the problem is that we do mistakes every single day, and God knew this from the beginning. And what he did was he gave his son a few 1,000 years ago so he would die for all your mistakes. And now the question is, do you want to receive Christ into your life?
Yes! No!
Yes!
Very good, thank you. What is the gospel? So usually we are not sitting in a plane. The plane is not about to crash. Usually we have time. So there are 4 points, very simple points, and this is a gospel. Number 1, God's plan. Wow, it's about love. God created heaven and earth. And God created man for what? For religion? I mean, was Adam running into a temple or a church or a charismatic church or no, we are not created for religion. We are created for relationship, to know him, to spend time with him, to talk to him. I've met a prostitute in Kenya years ago. I was just back from a crusade and she came to me and said, hey, hello. And I said, no, I'm a preacher and I'm married, I'm fine. And I've asked her, what is your name? And she said, oh, my name is Queen. And then I looked at her, I said, no, that's not your name, but that's your destiny, to be a child of the living God. And then I told her about Jesus, and at the end, she got saved. It is our destiny to know God. God created heaven and earth, that man would live in relationship with him. Jesus taught us a prayer, and this prayer is powerful. You will not find a prayer like that in any other religion. The first 2 words are what? Our Father. We can talk and we can pray to the Almighty God, and we can say something like that, Daddy. So man is created for relationship. And the Bible says in Genesis 1:31, God saw all he had made, and it was very good. When God created heaven and earth, everything was perfect. No sin, no sickness, nobody was dying, stealing, lying, no prostitution, no abortion, no sin. Everything was perfect. Adam was not limping, or he had no flu or whatever. Everything was perfect. God saw all he has made, and it was very good. But we have a problem right now. I mean, if you watch constantly negative news, CNN, you will figure out we have a problem. And the Bible says in Romans 3, and this is the second point, for all have sinned and fell short of the glory of God. The Bible says in Isaiah 59, verse 2, but your iniquities have separated you from God, man and God. And we are separated. There is a wall between God and man. I mean, I'm from Berlin, and Berlin was separated for years. So there was a wall in the center of the city, and nobody from the east was allowed to go to the west. Soldiers were standing in front of the wall, and if somebody tried to escape, they killed him. There was a wall between the east and the west. There is a wall between God and man. And this is what religion is doing. They try to escape. They try to come closer to God. You have to do this. You have to do that. Go to a temple. Go to do this, and so on. This is religion. We try to come closer to God. but we are separated. I've spoken with so many people around the world. I've spoken with people from different religions. And if I ask a simple question, do you have the assurance of eternal life? They say no. I've shared the gospel with a guru standing close to the Ganges River. And I've asked him, do you have assurance of eternal life? He said no. It's not possible. There is a wall between God and man. But if we talk about sin, we are not judging people. We are not blaming people. All what we want to do is to make sure that people could understand we are separated from God. I met a lady in Amsterdam. I was sitting at the airport and waiting for my plane, and she was sitting next to me, so I began to talk to her. And then I said, you know, if the whole world would live and do what the 10 Commandments are saying, come on, only for a day. Love God with all of your heart, love your neighbor. I mean, Jesus even said, love your enemy. If the whole world would live like that, don't steal, don't lie, and so on. What a day. Come on. What would ISIS do on that day? What would be the corrupt, whatever? I mean, a day where the whole world is doing what the Bible says we have to do. And then I said, I have done a lot of bad things. And then I told her an example. I said, here is my new smartphone. I will leave it here. It's a big, crowded airport. I will go to the restroom. What do you think? I'm coming back. Is the iPhone still on the ground? Come on, definitely not. Somebody will steal my smartphone. So the Bible says, Romans 3, we all have sinned. And there is a wall between God and man. Point number 1, God created man for relationship. Number 2, we are separated because of sin. But we have good news. And the good news is that God has a great plan. God is a loving man. 2,000 years ago, Jesus came. And when Jesus came, the wall came down. If you study the life of Jesus, it's amazing. I mean, he has never written a book. There is no podcast. There are no clips on YouTube, whatever. But his book is absolutely the best seller in the world. There is one movie, the Jesus movie, and it's translated into 1,200 languages. And over 6 billion people already watched that movie. I mean, we are living in the year 2016 after Mickey Mouse. No, after Jesus Christ. He split it the whole time into 2 parts. The time before him, the time after him. Who is Jesus? He claimed to be the Son of God. He said, well, he was a teacher, he was a prophet, but he's much more. They asked him, who are you? Are you the Son of God? And he said, yes, I am. I mean, his birth was unique, born by a virgin. His life is unique. He was healing the blind, the deaf, and the crippled. 2 blind men came, and immediately they were able to see. A crippled, a paralyzed man on the ground, and Jesus said, stand up, and immediately he began to walk. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. His life is unique, but his death was unique too. Jesus said that he will give his life in order to save us for eternity. And when Jesus died on a cross, he was shouting, it's done. Religion always says, we have to do. But when Jesus died on the cross, he said, it's done. And in that moment, when Jesus died on the cross, the wall between God and man came down. His death is unique. He was beaten and disfigured. His face covered in blood. But when he died, the Bible says in John 3:16, for God so loved the world. He loves you, he loves me. He loved the whole world. For so God loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. And when Jesus died on the cross, the wall between God and man came down. His death is unique, but Jesus promised he will die, but he will arise on the 3rd day. Who can say something like that? Only the Son of God. He gave his life on the cross. He died. But then 3 days later, the grave, the tomb was empty. No dead Jesus in the empty tomb. I was in Jerusalem several times. I was in his tomb several times. And always when I'm there, I'm so excited. Not because of flowers or whatever, I mean, some religious things. When I'm standing in his tomb, I know God raised his son from the dead, and Jesus is alive forever and forever. He is alive. His life is unique. His death is unique. But also his tomb is unique. God raised his son from the dead, and Jesus is alive for eternity. Now, and this is very important, the last point. Point number one, God created man for relationship. God already decided, I love man. We are all separated because of our sin. We're separated from God. But the good news is, when Jesus was dying on the cross, he already said, yes, I love every man on planet Earth. I gave my life. He came to seek and to save what is lost. And God already made the decision. Now we have to decide. We have to make a decision if we want to spend eternity with God, if we want to spend eternity in heaven, if we want to see that God is with us here on planet Earth right now, we have to decide to follow Christ. It's not enough only to go into a church. It's not enough to do good works. Jesus already died on a cross for all our sins. At the end, we have to decide to follow Jesus. So step number one, how to start a conversation. This is very important. Step number two, you've just heard what is the gospel. And in the next session, we will show you how to lead somebody to the Lord.